Become self-driven. Welcome back. I hope you are well rested and eager to continue. This is Self-Breakthrough Video 3. Let's start with a short meditation. I'd like to give you a chance to step outside of yourself for a moment and observe, from a distance and without judgment, what it's like to be with yourself, and to do so with kindness, compassion, and acceptance. Also, I believe it will be a nice introduction to the intriguing content that comes next. We can begin by turning into a comfortable position, and you can even close your eyes if that feels more comfortable for you. Take one deep breath in and out. Then take a moment to check in with yourself. Connect with your body, notice what is present, and identify where your attention is drawn. Whether to sensations in your body or the thoughts going through your mind, whatever seems to be grabbing the most of your attention right now. Just sit and observe for a moment. And as you notice these different aspects of yourself, see if you can choose not to identify with that self. As if there is a stance of awareness from which you can experience yourself from a distance. That person you perceive as you. Imagine that you are spending time together with this person who is you. Maybe you are sitting with yourself on a bench, or maybe the two of you are walking together. And as you do that, simply notice how it feels to be with yourself. Notice the reactions that come up in you as you spend time with yourself. Is there friendliness, compassion, or perhaps irritation or annoyance? Maybe judgment, or even anger? Any of these would be totally normal. Spending time with yourself may be comfortable or uncomfortable. It's completely fine either way. Just notice what it's like to be in your own presence. And as you do that, see if you can open a window to some kindness and compassion for this person that you get to spend your life with. Because you know that yourself has been through a lot and it is trying its best. It is not easy to be human, and no one really understands. And maybe you realize that as you two travel together through life, you could perhaps do that with a little more compassion and kindness to yourself. And if there's any physical gesture that represents that kindness, compassion, and care that you would like to offer to yourself. Maybe you would like to tap yourself on the shoulder, or put your hand on the chest, or give yourself a hug. You're welcome to do that, as if you say, "Oh, you silly human." Welcome back. How was it? If you liked it, it is something you can practice every now and then, just to kind of deepen your self-awareness and cultivate greater understanding and self-compassion. All right, now let's get back to our topic, how you shape your reality. Other than your thoughts and emotions, your beliefs and assumptions play a huge role in shaping your perception. They act like invisible filters, mental shortcuts that influence how you see and interpret the world around you. There was this story I heard about a man who was walking through an elephant camp when something caught his eye. He noticed that the elephants weren't being kept in cages, nor were they bound by heavy chains. Instead, each one had a simple piece of rope tied around one leg, anchoring them to the ground. As he gazed at the elephants, he was completely bewildered. These elephants, strong enough to uproot trees, didn't just use their strength to break the rope and escape. Surely, they could snap it without a second thought. Yet, there they stood, calm, unmoving, not even trying to break free. Unable to shake his curiosity, the man approached the mahout, the caretaker, and asked, "Why don't the elephants just break the rope and run away?" The mahout smiled and replied, "When they are very young and much smaller, we use the same size rope to tie them. At that age, it's strong enough to hold them. They tug and pull, trying to break the rope, but no matter how hard they try, they can't break free. Eventually, they give up, convinced that the rope is unbreakable. As they grow older and much stronger, they never question that belief. Even though they could easily snap the rope now, they don't try, because in their minds, it's simply impossible. I had to smile as well, and it made me think. I realized it's the same with us, isn't it? Just like the elephants, many of us grow up with beliefs that were formed during our childhood, beliefs shaped by our failures, fears, or the words of others. We carry them into adulthood, never realizing that we outgrew them long ago, and that we can easily break the ropes and set ourselves free. The only question is, are you willing to try? Okay, so what is a belief? A belief is a mental acceptance or conviction that something is true or real, often without direct evidence or proof. Beliefs we have are usually based on our personal experiences, cultural influences, and our education, and they shape our perceptions, influence our behaviors, and guide our decision-making processes. They are the most significant filter within our conditioning. They profoundly influence our perception and thus our interpretation of reality. Let me show you what a belief is. There's a simple game I saw Quick doing a few years ago, and I loved it. Let's try together. Stand up for a moment. If you like, jump up and down a few times just to shake things out. And then make sure you have enough space around you so that you don't hit anything if you turn. Stand straight and notice where your feet are. Now this is important. Make sure to keep them planted in one spot. No moving your feet, no matter what we do. Next, raise your right arm and point straight ahead with your index finger. And then, keeping your feet still, slowly turn your arm to the right, clockwise. Turn as far as you possibly can, and then look back and notice exactly where you're pointing, and remember that exact spot. Got it, great. Now come back to the center, stand straight and lower your arm. Now I am going to take you through a short visualization exercise. Now, if you don't know what visualization is or you've never done it before, it's like daydreaming, but on purpose. And it's very simple. All you have to do is close your eyes and use your imagination to picture something in your mind, like watching a movie inside your head. Let's try together. Take a deep breath in and out. Close your eyes. And then, with your arms at your sides, just imagine raising your right arm again. Just like we did before. But this time, don't actually move. Just imagine. In your mind, visualize yourself turning twice as far as you did before. As if your body is made of rubber. And it feels great. And then imagine turning even further, 3 times as far, even 4 times as far, than you did before. Like you're a gummy bear, and feel it in your body. Like a great stretch. See yourself going further. Let yourself believe you can go further. Great. Take another deep breath in and exhale. And open your eyes. Well done. Now let's try again. Raise your right arm again, and this time for real, just like we did at the beginning. Point straight ahead, and then turn your arm to the right as far as you possibly can, and see how far you can go this time. Great, you can sit down. Now tell me, did you go farther this time? I bet you did, probably 25%, 30%, maybe even 50% farther than before. Pretty amazing, right? I remember the first time I did this, I almost doubled my turn, and I couldn't believe it. Now here's the real question. Were you physically capable of turning that far the first time? It's not like you stretched or warmed up while your eyes were closed. In fact, you didn't move at all, yet the second time you went so much farther. Why? What was stopping you before? The limitation wasn't in your body, it was in your mind. You didn't believe you could turn that far. But the moment you imagined going farther, you did. Now that's the power of belief. Here's the fact for you. All behavior is belief-driven. All behavior. You went further, not because you worked harder, but because you believed you could. And that's how you do it. It's not always about working harder or pushing yourself more. It's about shifting your mindset. Because if you believe you can or believe you can't, either way, you're right, right? Who said that? Henry Ford said that. If you believe you can or believe you can't, either way you are right. And it's true. If you believe you can, you will. If you believe you can't, you won't. Either way you are right. Because all of our behavior is driven by belief. Now imagine this. What if you could achieve 25 to 50% more in your job, or in your relationships, or anything really, and do that without any additional effort? Did you work harder the second time you turned? No, you did not. You turned just by believing that you can. Amazing, isn't it? Whenever I learn something like this, I think, oh, I wish I knew this sooner, because it changes everything. So let's see what beliefs actually are and how they develop. Core beliefs are our deeply ingrained convictions about ourselves, about other people, and life in general. They form during our early years, shaped by experiences and learning, and they profoundly influence the way we think, feel, and act. They guide our behavior and shape how we perceive ourselves and interpret situations. They are fundamental to our identity and play a crucial role in shaping our self-esteem. Everything you know and believe about yourself, the world, and other people was learned during your formative years, typically between the ages of 3 and 7. Every belief, whether positive or negative, stems from the experiences you had and the lessons you learned by observing those around you. These beliefs are conclusions you arrived at based on your experiences. For instance, if you hold negative core beliefs about yourself, they likely developed through various negative experiences you encountered. Your early interactions and how you interpreted them have a profound impact on how you view yourself and the world today. Think of a 3-year-old child. At that age, everything you say to children, they accept and believe without question. Now imagine this. If we took a small child and constantly yelled at them, calling them stupid, telling them they could never do anything right, scolding them with phrases like, "Look at the mess you made. What were you thinking? I'm so disappointed in you. You always cause trouble. Can't you do anything right? Why can't you be more like your brother?" And on and on. We would end up with a frightened child hiding in the corner, afraid to speak up or try, or one who lashes out in frustration, confusion, and fear, deeply convinced they are bad, incapable, unworthy, and unlovable. Now, take that same child and fill their world with love and encouragement. Tell them how special they are, how bright and capable. Reassure them that mistakes are a part of learning and that no matter what, you'll always be there for them. Can you imagine the difference? The confidence, the joy, the limitless potential that would unfold? What I'm trying to say is that our early experiences and the messages we receive profoundly shape us. The way we were raised, whether we were nurtured, encouraged, or criticized, plays a major role in shaping our sense of self and the person we grow up to be. Experiences of punishment, neglect, or even subtle forms of disapproval can leave deep imprints, fostering negative core beliefs about who we are and what we're capable of. And the thing is, these beliefs don't just fade away, they stick with us, influencing how we see ourselves, how we relate to others, and how we navigate the world, often without us even realizing it. Now, just to make it clear, one doesn't have to have traumatic childhood experiences to develop negative beliefs. Maybe you did not receive enough attention, encouragement, or affection. It could be that your basic needs were just adequately met, but nothing more was given. Perhaps your parents were emotionally distant or not physically affectionate. Maybe they spent a lot of time working or pursuing their own interests and had very little time for you. Then you compared your family with families of your friends who might have had more positive experiences and concluded that it is somehow your fault, that maybe you are not good enough or worthy of love. Perhaps you were criticized or teased, rarely acknowledged, or had difficulty meeting your parents' expectations. Perhaps you had a feeling that you didn't fit in. Some people experienced being the odd one at home or at school because they had different interests, talents, or skills than others around them. And maybe they weren't directly criticized for that, but they weren't acknowledged or praised either. And at the same time, the activities or achievements of their siblings or peers might have been praised or celebrated. Sometimes families experience stressful and unpleasant life events, and parents are fully focused on dealing with the problems and may respond negatively toward their children. They become role models of unhelpful or bad behavior. Some families are viewed and treated differently by others in society, seen as different and less socially acceptable, and this can also influence how we perceive ourselves. What I'm trying to say is that there could be many different reasons that contributed to developing negative beliefs. Now, back then, as children, these kinds of beliefs may have made sense to us because we were unable to find other explanations for what was happening to us. At that young age, we were not mentally capable of questioning anything, so everything we were told we accepted as absolute truth. And then we developed negative core beliefs, deeply seated, firmly held, and strongly ingrained in our minds. These beliefs say, this is the kind of person I am. For example, I am bad. Everything I do is wrong. I'm not good enough. I'm not important. I'm unlovable. I'm fat and ugly. I'm unacceptable. Developing these kinds of beliefs can make one feel very bad about oneself. And to ensure that we keep on functioning, we begin to develop rules and assumptions for how we should live our lives, rules that help us protect our self-esteem. So we might develop rules such as, I must never make any mistakes. I must be best at everything. I must never show any emotion in public. I must always do the right thing. I must always be kind to others. And we develop assumptions such as, if I ask for something I need, I will be put down. If I ask for help, others will think I am incapable. No matter what I do, it will never be good enough. If I can't control my food intake, I will never be able to control anything in my life. Rules and assumptions can also be combined. For example, I must do everything I can to gain others' approval because if I am criticized in any way, it means I am not acceptable. I won't try anything unless I know that I can do it perfectly because if I can't, it means I'm a total failure. I have to always be slim and dress well, or else I will never be accepted. Now, these are just a few examples to give you an idea. There are plenty more, of course. However, the consequence of having these kinds of rules and assumptions is that they guide your behavior, meaning what you do on a day-to-day basis is largely determined by the rules you have for yourself. For example, depending on your rules, you will try very hard to do everything perfectly, and you will avoid doing things that seem challenging or that you've never done before. You might avoid getting too close to people, or do whatever it takes to please people, even if it goes against your needs or values. And the list can go on and on. But for sure, you can see how having such rules and assumptions might limit your experiences. But can you also see how having such rules and assumptions might result in developing a very low self-esteem? Let me give you an example. Let's say you have the belief, I'm incapable, which may originate from a past experience of receiving criticism from a parent or a teacher. So in order to protect your self-esteem, you developed a rule like, I must do everything perfectly, otherwise others will find out that I'm incapable. Having this rule will, of course, affect how you behave. Meaning, you are very likely to work very hard, trying to do everything perfectly and never make mistakes. You may become very careful about your work, checking everything many times just to make sure that you did it right. And as long as you never make mistakes and always gain your colleagues' or boss's approval, you can maintain an adequate level of self-esteem. However, by trying to live up to your rule, you are putting yourself under a lot of pressure. And while things might seem to be going well on the surface, your negative core belief is still there. As a matter of fact, it is well protected by your rules and assumptions and your behavior. Because the way you make sense of information, your rules and assumptions, and your responses to certain day-to-day situations, they all serve to keep your negative core belief strong. This is actually how low self-esteem is maintained. This is why your rules and assumptions cannot really be considered helpful, because they serve to keep your negative core belief alive. You may be feeling fine as long as you don't make any mistakes, but your low self-esteem lies dormant. And as life so is, sooner or later, you will encounter situations where your rule is at risk of being broken. Situations when you can't live up to that rule. For sure it will happen because this kind of rule is extreme and fairly unrealistic. It is impossible to hold because everyone makes mistakes. Let's say you decide to change jobs, and the new job is somewhat different. It is a more senior position with new tasks and responsibilities. And you are now in a situation where there is a possibility that you could make a mistake because some of these things you have never done before and are only learning now. And you are unable to do everything 100% perfectly. So your rule, I must never make mistakes, is at risk of being broken. And when that happens, your dormant low self-esteem becomes active, and it starts influencing how you think, feel, and behave in the situation. So you might become very pessimistic and self-critical, have negative expectations and negative self-evaluations. You might have thoughts such as, I'm not going to be able to do this. I won't do a good job. I will fail. Others will criticize me. Others will realize that I am incapable. These thoughts then influence your behavior, so you might avoid doing certain things to prevent negative outcomes, like avoiding attending meetings or start withdrawing. You might even begin to put assignments off until the last minute. You might become extremely cautious and over-prepared, staying up all night working on a project. These behaviors cause negative feelings such as shame, anxiety, frustration, or even depression. And your low self-esteem is no longer asleep. It is now awake and acute. And if it happens that you make a mistake, you will probably have self-critical thoughts such as, I should have done better. If I can't even do this, I must be really dumb. I knew I didn't have it in me. This just shows that I'm not good enough, that I am incapable. And this in turn makes your negative belief, I am incapable, even stronger. And then what we do is, we selectively focus only on times when we felt inadequate or received negative feedback, and always gather only evidence that supports our negative belief, so that belief persists over time and becomes stronger. Because we tend to pay attention to things we expect, and we interpret things in a way that is consistent with our expectations. Let me say that again. We pay attention to things we expect and interpret things in a way that is consistent with our expectations. Meaning, you only ever pay attention to things and interpret them in a manner that confirms how you see yourself, while disregarding times and experiences that differ or prove the opposite. And as a result, you tend to remember only things that happen in your life that are consistent with what you believe to be true. This way, your negative belief is self-fulfilling, because you will keep gathering information that keeps it strong, and rarely gather information or evidence that might question, challenge, and expose it as untrue or inaccurate. For example, let's say you believe you're unlikable. At a social gathering, you notice someone looking at their phone while you're talking. You might interpret this as a sign that they find you boring, completely overlooking the fact that several other people were actively engaged in conversation with you and even complimented your stories. Later on, you'll remember only the moment when the person looked at their phone, reinforcing your belief that you're unlikable. Making sense? Or let's say you believe you're unattractive. Unintentionally, you notice someone glancing at you briefly and then looking away. You might interpret this as them thinking you're unattractive, ignoring the fact that earlier that day, a friend complimented your outfit and said you looked great. You end up remembering just that brief glance and interpret it negatively, reinforcing your belief in your unattractiveness. And the truth is that we all do it. Our expectations and beliefs shape how we see the world around us. It's like the outside world is a reflection of our inner thoughts. Unfortunately, this often means that we end up reinforcing our negative beliefs and miss out on seeing the positive or contradictory evidence. So your rules and assumptions, first designed to protect you from the truth of your negative belief, actually serve to keep that negative belief alive. Another problem is that your rules will restrict your behavior in such a way that you don't get an opportunity to put your beliefs to the test and see if they are really true. Taking the example from before, that means that you will never intentionally do a mediocre job and see if the consequences you fear will follow. Like making a mistake and seeing if other people will really judge you and perceive you as incapable, or if they will see it for what it really is, just a mistake that could have happened to anyone and happens all the time. And whenever you are faced with a new challenge or setback, you might immediately attribute it to your perceived inadequacy without considering other possible explanations, like perhaps that it wasn't your fault at all. Even when you achieve success or receive praise, you may downplay or dismiss it, saying that it was really nothing, not a big deal, that it happened by accident, and that anyone could do the same. This again reinforces your belief that you're not good enough. Believing that you're not good enough may lead you to miss opportunities or sabotage yourself. Essentially, it will stop you from putting yourself out there and limit your opportunities to have different experiences, and it prevents you from learning and growing. For example, let's say you believe you're not good at public speaking, and because of that, you decide, I'll just avoid speaking up in team meetings. At first, it feels like you're protecting yourself from embarrassment, but here's the problem. By staying quiet, you never give yourself the chance to prove that belief wrong. Besides, what if, with a little practice, you could get better? Or maybe your coworkers would appreciate your ideas more than you think. You'll never know because that belief has you stuck in a loop. The more you avoid speaking up, the more that belief feels true, even though it might not be. Now, just to be clear, your negative beliefs don't always have to be things you're fully convinced are true about yourself. Sometimes they're just fears lurking in the background, like the fear of being inadequate or unlovable. It's that nagging thought in the back of your head, I don't really believe I'm incapable or unlovable, but what if I am? What if it's true? The tricky part is that even if it's just a fear, it can still affect your life in the same way as an actual belief. It influences how you think, feel, and act, as if it is true, just because you're afraid it might be. Take the well-known imposter syndrome that many people struggle with. Despite their competence and achievements, they consistently harbor feelings of being a fraud and fear exposure at any moment. Now, maybe you saw a bit of yourself in these examples, and I get it. It can be both surprising and uncomfortable to realize you might hold these kinds of beliefs. It's surprising because, most of the time, we aren't even aware of them. They often take root in childhood, slowly weaving themselves into our subconscious over the years. And it's uncomfortable because, let's be honest, who wants to think they believe something so negative about themselves? But, as I mentioned before, maybe it's not something you fully believe to be true. But even just the thought, the fear that it might be true, can be unsettling. And precisely out of that fear, but what if it is true? We form rules and assumptions that prevent us from living a happy and fulfilled life. Now, at this point, I need to say that the reason I shared all this is not for you to get depressed or start scolding yourself. It is to help you become aware of your negative beliefs so that we can work to change them. Just to show you how intensely beliefs influence our lives, here are a few examples of the kind of thinking and behavior some negative beliefs might generate. If I am afraid that I am unlovable, I might not be able to really accept love and be loved. I most likely wouldn't even believe others when they say they love me. I might choose codependent relationships where I have to earn love or avoid relationships altogether, thinking that I am better off alone and don't really need anyone, all to avoid proving that I can't be loved. Here's another one. If I hold a belief that the world is a dangerous and scary place and that I'm powerless, I might never trust anyone. I might feel that others are out to get me. I would never let my guard down and be vulnerable. I would never show others who I really am. This belief could even lead to ongoing anxiety and fear of change. Because if I hold such a belief, I would always make choices based on what is safe over what I truly want, and I would be suffering from a constant feeling that I am missing out on life and would never live up to my potential. Another side effect of this belief can be that I become a control person, always trying to monitor everything and everyone around me. And how about if I hold a belief that others are different and in some way better than me? I might often feel that I don't belong, like I'm from another planet and I don't fit in, almost like there's something wrong with me. I would feel that nobody really understands me and that I have to hide who I really am to be liked and accepted. People that hold such a belief often suffer from extreme loneliness, even when they are in a crowd, or they might struggle to understand themselves. Now, these are just a few examples, but you can surely see how limiting they can be, and perhaps you even recognized yourself in some of them. If so, I'm sure you'd want to change those beliefs, and I can show you how. But before we continue, if you feel like you need a break, now would be the perfect time to take it. Then, you can move on to Self-Breakthrough Video 4. Become self-driven.